Today on Max Kelly's Vegan Cooking Show, we're going to be making ciabatta. To start, we're going to make a type of pre-ferment known as a poolish. You'll often see this called a biga in ciabatta recipes, but technically a biga is fermented for longer and uses a lower ratio of water to flour. Our poolish is just 220 grams each of water and bread flour, along with a quarter teaspoon of instant yeast and a pinch of kosher salt. Stir that all together until it reaches a thick batter consistency, then cover and let rise until doubled or even tripled in volume and very bubbly. The timing will depend a lot on your ambient temperature. My house is pretty warm, so this took only 4 hours to mature. In a cooler house, it might take closer to 8 or even 12 hours. If it looks ready but you don't have time to finish the dough, just pop it in the fridge to slow down the fermentation and take it out when you're ready. We're using another 220 grams of water for our final dough, but start by adding about 150 grams to the bowl of a stand mixer and reserving the rest. We're also going to add all of our poolish, 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, 2 teaspoons of kosher salt, and a teaspoon of instant yeast. Finally, we're going to add 330 grams of bread flour. If you want a little extra fiber and wheat flavor, you can substitute whole wheat flour for up to 80 grams of the total flour here. Attach your bowl to a stand mixer fitted with the dough hook and mix on low speed for about 8 minutes until you have a fairly strong looking dough. At this point, reduce the speed of the mixer to a slow stir and add about half of your reserved water. It will slosh around the bowl for a bit until incorporating into the dough. Once this happens, add the rest of your water and stir until incorporated, then return to low speed and mix for another 5 minutes or so. Once the dough looks strong and is mostly pulled away from the sides of the bowl, shut off your mixer, oil a large bowl or proofing container, and transfer your dough to the proofing container using damp hands to keep it from sticking. Toss the dough to cover it in oil and let it rise covered until doubled in volume, about an hour. Flour a clean work surface very generously with flour and turn your dough out onto it. Dust the surface of the dough with more flour and pat it into a large rectangle about 8 inches wide by 12 to 15 inches long. Cut the dough in half lengthwise with a bench scraper or very sharp knife, and transfer the 2 halves to a clean kitchen towel that's also been generously coated with flour like so. Make some grooves to cradle your loaves, and cover them with another towel and let them proof at room temperature for 45 minutes to an hour. At this point, preheat your oven to 450 degrees with a baking steel or stone on the center rack if you have one, and a large cast iron pan on the bottom rack. When your loaves are finished proofing, they should just spring back slightly and leave a visible indentation when poked. Cover an inverted baking sheet with a piece of parchment paper, then bring the edge close to one of your loaves and gently flip it over onto the baking sheet. If the dough stuck to the kitchen towel, just pry it off as gently as possible while silently cursing yourself for not using more flour. Repeat with the second loaf and let them rest while you bring a cup of water to a boil. When your water is boiling, slide your loaves onto the baking steel or stone, then pour your water into the cast iron skillet and shut the oven as quickly as possible. The baking steel and steam will help you get the best oven spring possible, but you can bake the loaves directly on a baking sheet without steam and still get good results. After about 10 minutes, remove the cast iron pan and leave the oven door open for a few seconds to let most of the steam out. Remove the parchment and bake for another 20 minutes or so until the loaves are a deep golden brown. Transfer the loaves to a wire rack to cool, then slice them open for toast, sandwiches, or anything else, and enjoy.